Hi, welcome to another exciting episode. The Andre the Beast Creighton Show, another exciting show. Definitely another exciting guest. We're going to talk to a beautiful young lady all the way in Canada. Let me tell you about that beast mindset we're about to go through. Imagine, if you will, being diagnosed with an illness. Let me call the illness what it is. Multiple sclerosis. Wow. That's a tough name, let alone having it. But imagine, if you will, having to define, or let me put it like this. What if you had to live your life based on this condition? What roles do you take? A lot of times when we have illnesses, we usually get surrounded with other individuals that have it. And then what usually happens if, in certain situations, if this individual has it and their life is, and their life is, very seldom do you see somebody that has it that has an elevation up here where your mind really is, but because of the condition, your mind is here. But you know there's something more than just the illness itself. But imagine taking all this and rewriting the narrative, putting that beast mindset to action. Let's welcome to the show, all the way from Canada, Nicole Kernohan, the author of Audacity Joy. Did I get it right?
Audacious Joy. So close. It's audacious. It's hard.
You know what? I'm really shocked about your beast mindset. You know, to be diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and then to achieve the level of what you have done, and you're very young at such a young age, is crazy. But before we get started, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. I am a TEDx speaker, a coach, an author, and all these great things. But at the root of it is I would define myself as a powerful, loving, and inspiring woman. And I'm 5 feet tall. So we're just listening here. You can't tell I'm a petite woman, but I know that I have that beast mindset inside of me. And it's really exciting to be on your show and to be able to share my story that hopefully will inspire others that may have whatever limitation that they perceive themselves to have, to know that there's more.
Now, you're born and raised in Canada, right?
Yes.
Something that I need to ask, and I'm gonna just, go straight to the, to the wishing well here. Being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis had to be, how much was your parents' knowledge on the illness when it surfaced, and how did they navigate you? Because your story involves a mindset, a shift in changing the narrative to what you was diagnosed with, how you should be treated, and how society looks at you. And the last part, what society says let me put it like this, you're not capable of doing based on the conditions.
Yep. So I was 21 when I initially, it started with just tingling at my right hand and leg, and over really a few days, it happened fairly quickly. It became a full paralysis of the right side of my body. I was in my last year of university, and when it happened, there was something that really interesting that happened when it comes to mindset. My parents were understandably, I have a son, they were understandably devastated. Multiple sclerosis is typically a degenerative condition. It deteriorates the myelin sheaths in your brain, and many times people end up in a wheelchair. There's a lot of variations of the conditions, not one size fit all. But the doctors gave me a diagnosis as well as a prognosis. I accepted the diagnosis because I saw the scans and I was clearly paralyzed. I could see the diagnosis, but what I did not do was accept the prognosis. The prognosis is the prediction of what this condition will lead to my future. This is this is the expectation of what this commonly ends up creating in one's life.
Nicole, do me a favor, not to cut you off, but to educate, because the platform is also to educate people. For those that don't know or may have someone who has what you've had, what were the diagnoses and what was the things that they told you when they share the information with you so that viewers can understand a little bit more.
So multiple sclerosis, the diagnosis is actually more commonly diagnosed later in life. So, but it does happen sometimes young when you're, I would say young, 21 is quite young for that. And it damages the myelin sheath, which is this protective layer in your brain, which means it stops sending your brain stops sending proper signals to your body. So things don't all function correctly. There are different forms. The prognosis is commonly that it is degenerative. So over time, it gets worse. There are forms. So some people go into remission, and then some people don't or remiss and then go back into it. But what the doctor said to me was, you may or may not regain functionality. So at the moment when I was fully paralyzed, they said you may or may not. And my parents heard the may not, as did my friends and peers, and everyone around me was like devastated by, oh my goodness, you might be paralyzed for the rest of your life. And it's funny, I heard the words, but I chose not to believe that. However, I also believe that I would have been okay even if I did. My beast mindset was, I don't believe that is my future, but I also knowing myself today, that I was going to be a strong woman regardless of what happened. Mm-hmm.
When you say paralyzation, how much of your body was paralyzed?
So it was my right arm. I could move like my shoulder a little bit, but not anywhere kind of below there. This whole arm, my leg, a little bit of my face. So I couldn't walk initially until I regained functionality. I had to relearn how to write, how to tie my shoelaces, how to eat. Obviously, I couldn't drive until I slowly regained functionality. And
how much of this weight did your parents have to take because you're functioning all the way up to you're 20 years old, and you have a son, right? At the same
I do now. I didn't at the time.
Okay, so no kids at the time, but
no.
Let's go back. How much? Let me put it the right way where it makes sense. Everybody's been struck with the devastation, but now a plan of action now has to take place for your care, which may be or may not in this case long term. Like how did the family actually stay together? How did you guys get that beast mindset and say, look, we don't know what's going to happen based on what they told us, but your mindset is this way. But now you got to convince the people that's taking care of you that your mind is here. Because like you said, all they hearing is what the doctor's saying.
Yeah, I am so incredibly grateful for my parents. It was devastating. I moved back home. I was at university, and I was living there on campus at the time. I moved back home, not clearly, but I chose to move back home, and I'm so grateful my parents were able to support me in that. My mother couldn't eat for a while. She lost so much weight. It was definitely very emotionally tolling on the family because, to your point, I felt confident. I'm like, I got this, guys. We're good. Don't worry about me. But, in the meantime, could you tie my shoelaces and put on my mascara, do my hair, drive me to school? So I felt confident, but I needed so much support. And my family just saw that it is not guaranteed. The outcome is not guaranteed. And I think that their fear of this being permanent or long-term was absolutely overwhelming to them. I'm so grateful that I had that powerful mindset because I was able to influence them over time. And as I started to get better and do all of the things, there was no amount of time, money, information, new ideas that would have deterred me from my goal, which was to be healthy, to get married one day, to run, to exercise. I had all these visions, and it really did help them to see my confidence and through this process.
I'm sitting here literally doing a mind shift. I'm trying to put myself in your situation, and at that young age, I have to accept the fact that reality sometimes may take over. Where there are moments in your life where I get being strong is one thing, but that's face to facts. You're still dealing with reality, wondering whether or not you are going to be a burden, whether or not what they say is going to come true. How did you roughly, what's the percentage of how many times those thoughts actually took place versus regaining? Because people need to understand a beast mindset or any positive mindset is always still met with the factors of the environment that you're around. How many times did you have to shift through this?
100% agree with you. I am human and not immune to the devastation and the fear. In my experience, people thought I didn't hear the doctor. And so I think it went in one ear, out one ear so quickly that it would appear to be I was 21. I wasn't 5, but it looked like I was just a young, naive girl. Like she doesn't quite get it. I would say I had a handful of moments where I had devastation of like where the reality sunk in for a second. And those moments happened with the simplest of things. Like not being able to tie my shoes.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't in, some other major struggle. It was like, I just want to tie my shoelace right now. And I was trying with one hand and as the second hand was starting to work a little bit, it was something simple like that I just had a total breakdown. But then I was able to get back up, parents and friends and really supportive people in my life that could help me.
I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. Even when I had a mini stroke, I was in the gym and was actually going back and forth to the gym. I didn't even know what had happened to me. Mm-hmm. And when they told me, all kind of things like went through my mind. I mean, I'm kind of flip it. I know it can't be as worse as what you did, but just them telling me that, my mind just was like, okay, what do I do now? I start looking at family. I start reevaluating and going, within a matter of a second, I could have been taken out. You know what I mean? But my mind shifted and was like, okay, you're not going to let this take you down that road. How long did it take you to, I'm going to go back to what I was saying. It took me a long time. I was probably, because I was like you, I was very healthy. Nothing had ever happened. Mine was a little freak accident. Mine came from having a steroid injection. I had an allergic reaction to a steroid injection, but still it changed my life. And it took a while to regain that beast mindset to its fullest potential. How long did it take you to actually get to where you're at right now, from diagnosis to where you're at now, which is a true champion?
Well, it took me until now because have not arrived. There's always more. I think when I started to regain functionality, and I got back to school, went back to university, and I remember I was walking to class, still limping, and like I wasn't fully functioning. I was walking to class through a field on the way to the building, and I had it with a friend, and he said, "How is it that you can be so positive when you just went through what you went through, and you still have the diagnosis? There's no official cure. You can have a relapse at any time, even if you start to regain functionality." And I couldn't answer him. I couldn't answer him at that time. That's why I got into the study of positive psychology and mindset. And I didn't even get into that right away. It was actually years later that I started to try to unravel, why was I able to handle that with confidence?
Yeah.
And yet so many people would be devastated and crumple and not be able to overcome it.
Let's go here with this. You talked about affirmations and years later going into a deeper understanding of who, what, where, when, why. But let's get real. You can have a relapse. Anything can happen because there's no cure for what you have. We going down this deeper acknowledgement of things, affirmation, so forth. How has that changed you, and how have you weaving that into position to, if it does, you're prepared. If it doesn't, you're still good?
I like to refer to what I call progressive affirmations. So this has worked for me, and it also works for others, where I don't only say, I am a powerful, loving, and inspiring woman, as I did when I started off here today. I love to say that, and it makes me feel good. I feel confident. I feel strong. And when you're having a moment of doubt or maybe a physical relapse or having something that brings you down, sometimes going all the way up to the strong affirmation doesn't always work for everyone in every circumstance. It depends on how they're feeling, where they're at. I like to use, for myself, I might say, up until now, I was struggling with this. So the 3 words are up until now. I will acknowledge I was feeling I was having a really hard time this week up until now. I will acknowledge where I'm at, where I have been feeling down. And then I will say the words, I am choosing. I am choosing to believe that it's possible. I'm choosing to believe that I am strong. I'm choosing to believe that I have support around me. I'm choosing to believe that things work out for me, that everything's happening for my good. So I use those words up until now, and I am choosing, and then fill in the blanks with whatever the circumstance is. And that those words immediately shift me, because it feels real. It doesn't feel like I'm not trying to fake myself into something, even though I love strong affirmations. Those are the kinds of words that help me when I'm feeling down or stuck or in fear or worry.
You have a child now, correct?
Yes, he's 11 and he's almost as tall as me.
Well, look how tall you are.
Exactly. He thought I was going to get taller. He's asked me how tall I would be when I grow up, and when he was 5.
Now, are there concerns
Mm-hmm.
with your son now? Because clearly you went all the way up into your 20s, and boom. I mean, you're probably doing more research about. Well, this is what I usually find out when things happen to us. We really start to really go deep into why did it happen. What can I do to prevent? Is it hereditary? Is it genetic? Does it skip? How far have you gone now since now you have a son and this happened to you unannounced?
Mm-hmm. So what I have found, there's not even a clear cause for MS. So it is a little annoying in that sense. There is some research showing that there is some genetic components. So it is possible that it can be passed down. It actually was a small fear even having a child in the first place, because also during pregnancy and delivery, sometimes it can cause a relapse. So I'm grateful that I used all my mindset skills, but I'm grateful that I positively even went through that experience.
Did they put you as a high risk pregnancy? I take it.
You know what? I don't remember. They did eventually. I wonder if that's a good question. I'm in Canada too, so our healthcare system operates a little differently. Maybe they should. Maybe they just take it as it goes.
Did anybody in your family? Because I'm pretty sure you went back. Did you go back? How far did you go back to see if somebody had it in your family?
Well, I didn't find anyone in my family who had multiple sclerosis, but I did find others in my family who had some neurological conditions that may be somewhat similar, and there was others that had other. Every family has a variation of things, so sometimes it's hard to know whether that correlation was what the cause of that correlation was. But I was the first in my family to officially have this neurological condition.
How does your family look at you now, knowing that you're where you at right now?
Well, my grandmother is 92, and I went to go visit her yesterday. And she is like a proud butterfly. It was flapping her wings. She's like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with you. It's pretty inspiring. It does feel amazing to be able to be a inspiration to others, and not just for my own ego, but to help others feel like they can step into their own personal power. So it's pretty rewarding.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this black belt karate. What kind of karate is this that you're a black belt in? How long did it take you to get a black belt? When did it start?
Well, I did Shorin-ryu karate.
Ishan-ryu?
Shorin-ryu.
Shorin-ryu?
Okay. Similar, I think.
Yeah, I studied Ishan-ryu. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. So how long did it take?
It took me 10 years, but I started when I was 9, and I got my black belt when I was 19. And as you might catch on if you've been listening, that was before I had my episode with multiple sclerosis. And I know that those 10 years in intensive martial arts shaped my confidence in myself and my ability to get through what I ended up going through at age 21.
Now, are you still active? Are you teaching? How are you taking your martial arts experience into the next level to help you to navigate with the
Mm-hmm.
kids?
I did teach for a number of years. Now I actually have transitioned into CrossFit, which is not the same, but it's quite fascinating. It's a cross, you might be familiar. It's a combination of there's gymnastics, there's powerlifting, the strength, and it allows me to prove to myself that I am stronger than I think every single day. And I do competitions in CrossFit. I don't teach, but I do find it's inspiring to watch others as well as for others to watch me, to be able to push our bodies beyond our perceived limits.
Let me go here. This is a beautiful book. How did this book come about? And how did the name surface?
Audacious Joy, the keys to living with freedom, authenticity, and unshakable happiness. I would say that the book came to pass because over my lifetime, as particularly after my MS experience, I had enough people express that I seem to be a sunshine. And I'm not saying that to brag. There was enough feedback in the world that I seem to be able to see the world from the lens of things are working out. And I'm grateful for that. I am very intentional with practicing that mindset. And I know that I had that in me. It wasn't that hard for me to switch over. And many people are on the other side of the lack side. There's not enough fear, worry, doubt, and they're constantly trying to train themselves to get out of it. So I felt inspired to write a book of my 20 years really of experience and research in understanding how to cultivate joy in all its forms. That includes the calm, peaceful version of joy. That includes the excited, so bubbly, jumping and upbeat version of joy. And it includes the version of joy where you can find peace and gratitude even amongst challenging circumstances.
Let's go here. You wrote a book, and I find that most authors, when they write a book, they write from deep personal things that they went through. When you go back and think about the book, it's one thing having it in your hand, but take me down parts of that book that really hit home with you. There's certain, whether it be a chapter, whether it be a phrase, what are some of those moments in that book that you still relate to very deeply?
Man, there's so much of it. My story does flow through the book in different parts of it. And then I bring in tools and concepts that I used. Some of it unconsciously at the time, but I later learned that it was an official tool, of tools of how to apply those shifts. I did have a business. I worked in corporate for 10 years, and then I opened a business. And one of the parts in my book that I know we've been talking about my health journey, but I also overcame some major obstacles in my career and in business. And
we're getting ready to go there too. I haven't left it out.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, but that is one of the pieces in my book I find is more vulnerable for me to talk about things that I perceived as a failure in business than it is for me to talk about things that I feel like I struggled with in my health. I don't know, there's a deeper vulnerability because I felt like MS happened to me. Whereas when I failed, I don't consider myself a failure at all. But part of one of the businesses I did at one point in time failed. It didn't work, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to, the word failure sometimes, but that is something that I was proud of myself for being able to share part of that story and how I overcame that and what I learned. So that, because we don't want to hide behind all of our struggles, whether it was caused by us or others.
Give us an insight of your business skills and what happened and why do you think that you failed in there? Because I'm a prime example. With business, you're going to fail. It depends on how you recover from it. And maybe it was a skill set that you didn't have, and that's acceptable, but everything is not going to be a smooth journey in life, especially when it comes to business. But what happened with you and your business journey?
Yes. So my first So I had a career as an employee and a manager in corporate for 10 years. And then my first business was a retail business. It was a health food store. Surprise, surprise. I was passionate about health because I had overcome this health experience. And the failure, and I'm okay with using the word failure, like, right? Like, so just, I don't attach it as much to my self-worth anymore as I maybe once did. So I'm not afraid to say that it failed. It didn't fail in all respects. There was many people who were positively impacted, the community, the individuals who did get, right? It wasn't a failure in its entirety, but the business model itself struggled it was in a mall environment. There was not a lot of traffic. There was a new competitor that opened across the street. There's all these tangible external reasons that you could see on the surface. Oh, that would contribute to the reason why it didn't work out. I truly believe that beyond my own mindset, that I wasn't meant to be there forever. And I am so determined to never give up that I would have still been in that one little business, in that one store, in that one mall, helping a few people. And I really did help a few people. I would have stayed there if I didn't have some major struggles in the business that forced me to get out and choose a different path.
I'm glad you said that. You said that maybe, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, maybe that wasn't meant for you. Maybe the path for you was somewhere else, but you needed that particular thing to maybe bring both of it into let me put it, a higher vibration. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to understand why you didn't bring like martial arts in as your first business aspect. I mean, let's get real. I know about Ishanru. It's got to be similar to what you was doing. That's dedication. So why wouldn't you have started with that business venture first?
You know what? The version of me today, who is much more confident, maybe would have considered that. At that point in time, even though I have had a certain level of confidence, I looked young. I still look young. I think I'm older than I look. And I'm petite. I didn't feel confident enough, even though I taught karate, but every time I taught a class at that time, I was still like, oh, if this is a new adult student, they might not respect me because I looked like this petite little woman. They would respect me as soon as I do my kata. But I felt, and I don't agree with what I'm saying in reality. But that was my experience of it at the time. And I think that caused me to have fear and hesitation.
You was putting affirmations of roadblocks in your way, knowing good and time well you knew how to do it to begin with, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, reality is my size could have been the biggest magnet to attract people to. That's what I was getting ready to say. It could have actually been a gift, but that's not at the time how I saw it. I didn't know everything I know now. I hadn't studied psychology yet at that point in my life. So It's pretty cool to look back. But so
now you're also doing TED Talk. So this is my question here with TED Talk. Definitely you're a very motivational individual and a powerhouse. You know, I always tell people, don't judge a book by the cover. You know, you never know what you're going to get. But when you're going out and you're speaking to people, everybody doesn't have that mindset. And I tell people, everybody may not get that mindset because that's not how society is built. Society is built to keep you down here. You have to figure out how to move stuff away, go under, go over to get to where you get to. So my question here is, being a motivational influencer to people, especially on a platform as big as TEDx, what are some of the questions that people come at you with that you look at when you're giving a speech and be like, you know what, I never really looked at myself that deep? What have been some of the questions that they came at you with that made you go, wow, I never really thought about answering myself that?
That's an interesting question. I get questions every day, so there's been a lot, but now that I've had so many, questions, I have had a lot of that reflection. I absolutely love getting a new question that I haven't been asked before, though, because that's how you grow, and that's how you learn. You can't grow if you only continue to have the same questions and the same thoughts. I think one of the biggest things that I have gotten fairly consistently over the years in terms of a question is, because by the time they get a question, it means they've heard a little bit. So they've heard a little bit to know, okay, I have more potential inside of me. I am now starting to realize that the way I've been seeing myself and the world is limited, and it's limited by my own thoughts. It's limited by the societal expectations that have maybe created those thoughts in you, but it's you. You are the problem, and you are also the solution. And then, so the question is, then how do I get out of it? How do I, if now they become aware, they start to actually, and I wouldn't even just say aware, they start to believe. They start to believe me when I'm like, you do have more potential. They start to wake up, like snap out of it. Get out of the societal norms. They start to snap out of it. They start to wake up. They start to believe that they do have more potential. And now they want to change, but they don't know how to change. How do I actually get out of the patterns? So that's probably the biggest thing that I see fairly consistently, right? Now that once they become aware, they want to know, how can I actually change?
So my question here is, with all that you've gone through, now you're doing the TEDx and you have a book out. What is your simple approach to change and developing overall strength and really harnessing all of that information?
For sure. So I think the core of change is the realization that it's not conscious change. If someone was listening to this today and they're feeling inspired and they all of a sudden, maybe they heard something they hadn't heard before and they picked it up in their conscious awareness, right? They've heard it, or you take a course or you read a book, or the way to create transformation is not just by learning it and hearing it one time. It's by implanting it into your subconscious. I'll use the word conscious and subconscious, but just that they've actually implanting it into your subconscious, because that's where 95% of your results come from. And so there's a process. I do use processes and systems. We have tools and repetition and systems with coaching and programs to actually create that shift. But I would say it comes from repetition. It does not come from learning something one time and hoping, therefore, I magically have ingrained it in me and I'm now going to implement it permanently. The secret is, how do I get things consciously into the subconscious? And there are lots of processes that I use, but there are things that you can do to shift that.
I always tell people, consistency is the way to perfection, because you keep doing it, you're going to make mistakes. You keep doing it, you're going to make mistakes, and eventually you become the master. Let's talk about, before we wrap up, and also let me say thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and, share such a beautiful amount of information to people. I like that. Let's go here with the future. Definitely what you've been through, you have taken it and you have amplified. I'm pretty sure you're almost like a advocator for MS individuals who, like I said, the medical society is going to keep you here and put you here. But you're a prime example is you can get rid of all that shit. You know what I mean? Develop that mind, that inner self, and say, I can do anything the fuck I want to do. So let's go here with the ripple effect in the future and your message. What's that like for you?
Oh, that's my favorite. That's my favorite thought. My favorite thought is to realize that every individual person who has been influenced by something that I may have said or done, or they saw, that I know that as they feel better, if I bring it to the frequency, right? They are now elevated a little bit. They feel a little bit better. They show up differently. Now they go out into their neighborhood. They influence the next person. I absolutely know my son is going to be influencing his next generation and everyone around him. The ripple effect is so profound. That's what part of the reason I wrote a book was how can I possibly get to hundreds of thousands and millions of people, not just by me as an individual on a podcast or in person. I wanted to be able to get it out in other ways. And it's exciting. It's exciting to think of the impact. A small change can make a huge impact. You don't have to worry about how small the change is. It can make a big impact.
I like that. Before we wrap up, how can the viewers reach out to you, get your book, and know more about all of your services, and more importantly, to even be educated on how you may or may not be able to overcome this? Because clearly there's no cure for it, but you know what? You're living life to the fullest. Let's get real.
100%. I often forget that I have the diagnosis because I choose not to focus on it. What you focus on expands. So the best way to get a hold of me is probably even through my website, NicoleKernohan.com. I'm on social media on Facebook and Instagram, and those platforms are available through my website. I do share quite a bit. I do little short videos. I share content through those platforms. So NicoleKernohan.com. I have a free abundance journal in there if anyone would like to grab that, but definitely would love to connect.
Nicole, thank you so much for taking time. Like I said, once again, to bless your presence on my platform. You guys make sure you subscribe, like, share, follow. Like I always say, sometimes all it takes is one click of a button to make a difference in your life or change somebody else's. Keep that beast mindset. Nicole, love you. Definitely want you to come back. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.